Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. My name is Farheen Khan, and I'm today you're watching another episode of Food is Life. Today I'm a bit on a travel journey, but I wanted to still make sure that we had this incredible conversation. So thanks again for joining us. So pardon my sitting in my car at this time, but I'm sure we will have an incredible conversation regardless. So let us go ahead and first introduce our co-host, Brittany McGuire. She is the senior good food lead at Meal Exchange, and she's been on the show before. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Brittany, and then we'll move on to introducing our guest for the day. Welcome, Brittany.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Farheen. Thanks for having me again. I'll introduce our speaker for today, who's going to talk a little bit about food in the city with us. Darcy Higgins is a master community builder, sustainability, and public policy advocate. He has spent years changing policy, building local food movements, and advising politicians at all levels. Raised in Sarnia and studied at the University of Waterloo, Darcy is keenly interested in creating a more socially resilient world in the face of climate change. He has managed political campaigns, organized and oversees charitable projects, and edited works in the environmental field. He co-directs Building Roots, which is what we're going to talk about today, an innovative social venture that enables people to create socially cohesive communities in Toronto. Their current challenges to bring resources and revitalization to the underserviced Moss Park and Downtown East community in Toronto. After founding unique projects such as the first shipping container food store in the country and downtown Toronto's only urban farm, they are positioned to increase their impact and are actively seeking new partners that can help change the face of our communities. So welcome, Darcy.
Hey, welcome, Darcy.
Hey, how's it going? Great. Hi, everybody.
Good, thanks. How are you? Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. I'm doing really well. It's a beautiful day, and I'm by the window. You're in the car, and we all got some light.
Also by a window.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful to see the sunshine.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been beautiful these days.
Go ahead, Brittany.
Can you tell us a bit about Building Roots? How did you get started? What was the motivation behind the social venture? Just some background information.
Sure. Building Roots. I mean, it was a great idea. We came together, Lisa Cates and I met Lisa through work previously in food policy, and we met and we both just started talking. We had similar ideas. We were both concerned about green space being gobbled up, farmland being used. So we were concerned about, where we're going to grow food in the future. I was concerned thinking about the developments happening in the city, Toronto growing so fast, and that also being maybe an opportunity to bring in food, grocery stores, markets, gardens, how we use that resources. So came together, we did a big event in Regent Park about what the developer and the community were doing there to increase food access in the revitalization process. And we went from there, talked to lots of people around the city, and generated some neat ideas. And then we started working on some projects.
Are you from the Moss Park area? Why that particular region of Toronto?
The Moss Park, I live not too far away, and I connected with residents there, and Lisa and I went to meet with community members, and they had ideas for what they wanted to see in their neighborhood. And they told us that there was nowhere left to buy fresh food, especially affordable, healthy food. There's Dollarama, people are not able to access food for various reasons. So we took that back and thought of what we can do with the community, and the community helped us advocate for the approaches we took. And they also told us they more broadly felt invisible to the rest of the city. And so, it was more than just food that was a problem.
So if I can ask then, Darcy, for those who, because we have people watching from across the country, for those who don't know Moss Park and what's actually happening in Moss Park, can you give us a bit of an overview of what that looks like?
Moss Park is mostly a tower neighborhood. That part of the city used to look, if you're familiar with Cabbagetown, those beautiful shorter houses, but a few parts, Regent Park, Moss Park, St. Jamestown, around the 50s, 60s, they built these tower communities, and they built social housing. And so, and that Moss Park, downtown East area also has a history of shelters and social services going back to, I think, post World War II. So there's a history of that being a place where there's a lot of poverty. And Moss Park in particular, because there's not this energy resources change like Regent Park has had this redevelopment. Moss Park seemed to get ignored. There's sort of a fence around the social housing buildings, and nothing animated. There are not many storefronts. So people sort of drive by and pass the community, and the residents could really feel that.
And so you actually put together, so you actually now have a container that's on Moss Park. Can you just describe kind of your business model for us a bit?
Yeah, so the container, we decided to think about using shipping containers when the community approached us. It'd be very expensive to use an existing retail or something in downtown Toronto. So we decided to go with this approach. And we eventually got permission from the Toronto Community Housing, so public city property, and then brought this in and worked with a company called StoreStack that built this, putting shipping containers together and creating an actual little shop, a little box. So it's like a store that anybody would walk into. And it's the first of its kind in Canada, maybe North America, that has this exact approach. And what we settled on after some time is to run the market ourselves with a staff. We have a manager named Tuba, and what we do is sell $5 fruit and vegetable baskets, and we have other items, so some locally made products, different things that come in, and that's been our focus for the last couple of years.
Great.
That's amazing, really innovative.
Thank you. It works really well, and the community, as I said, when we developed this idea with the tenants in the social housing buildings, they, we had to get permission, we had to get approvals. It was a very difficult process, but they were along with us. They had people sign petitions in their lobbies to get signatures in support of the market. And now, following that all the way through, it's a very busy place, and it has become more than just about food.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I think that brings us to our next question a little bit is how could the city or maybe even province take action to improve food security across the city? So you're describing, citizens having to work together and work with you folks to ask for these things, but what could the city itself do? More broadly.
Yeah, I worked on the city and some provincial food policy for a while, and an overarching challenge is that food doesn't come up as a political issue, as housing sometimes, or jobs and taxes and those kind of things. Healthcare are really big in Canada, but healthcare is about sort of the end, the disease treatment. So if we're looking at prevention and dealing with food and all the aspects of food issues, we really need to grow the idea that food is political, for sort of the politicians to care, for the public service to come up with strategies and approaches that work for our communities. So when you come down to it, a major piece is income issues, that if you don't have the income, you're not able to afford food. So the access issue for food is partly income, and it's also partly the way food is planned in the city. Like, we have a community in Moss Park, but also if you look at inner suburbs of Toronto and other cities as well, you have challenges with the placement of, say, grocery store is we build one place where you can get food, rather than in other countries you have little shops, little markets down the street. You can walk to them, but in this case you have to drive. So it's a challenge for people, and low-income people may not have cars. We kind of make food more and more inaccessible. So there's things that the city can do in terms of planning, in terms of being innovative, working with developers and partners. The province and federal government looking at increasing minimum wages, having a guaranteed annual income would be really important to allow everybody to get a start. And also, if you have, if your basic income is taken care of, you can go buy food. You don't have to put all of your day in worrying about your next meal or getting a meal for your kids.
Absolutely. Well, I think, it's really great that you mentioned that. I think you're right. We need to make food more political, be able to get it on people's agendas. And it's really good that been some work done and that you've been working at the kind of municipal and provincial levels. And I know that federally there's also a food policy. And so, as Meal Exchange, we're also starting to think about how we could, start to integrate more of the student lens, right? Or the post-secondary student lens into some of those policies. It's definitely something we want to look at in the future. So question for you. I know that, Darcy, when we were in the Agents for Change program through CSI, I remember, you talking about the shipping container and really hearing about how innovative that was, and to realize, what an incredible opportunity. So I think the big thing for, you kind of alluded to it earlier, some of the challenges, but are there any ongoing challenges that you're kind of facing at this point? Just curious around, this is such a great example of sort of communicating through food in a very different way. So just really curious on that.
Yeah, the challenges we've had every step of the way is a challenge in doing these kind of projects. I think some people, they care about a global issue, an environmental issue, or poverty, and so they decide to do something at their community level in their neighborhood, and then they come up with these city barriers, policies, or bureaucracy, and then they sort of become repoliticized and have to organize again just to be able to carry forward their project. And so food is very interlinked in all these politics. And for us, we have navigated these different challenges with the market, and also starting other urban agriculture projects or other types of markets. So you always have to work with a landowner, a public or private property owner. And these things take a lot of time. We've learned a lot about how to find allies and how to work with people within organizations that share our vision. And if we have that, it's there's an ability to make it happen. But yeah, sort of a variety of challenges that are thrown at you in doing these kind of things. Because these are innovative projects, and the way the current structure is, say in using parks or in housing, they're more conservative structures and organizations. So we have to sell the benefits of a project, show the interest in the community and that it's going to work, and find these sort of ways and loopholes to get it through.
So it sounds to me like the red tape or bureaucracy is kind of the biggest challenge that you're facing, if I understood that correctly.
Yeah, that's always a big one. We also have to find funds to start the program and to maintain the projects. We always hire a coordinator or a manager for each program, and we want to pay always a good wage for those projects. So we're always fundraising for that. A lot of times the model isn't one that you can make the money from selling food. Sometimes we're asked, well, can you make, there's some cases if you have, say, a big urban farm, a big space, that you could, say, make a revenue to pay somebody for their work. But a lot of the time that's also not possible, because we're trying to get the food at a low cost to people so they can access it. So, yeah.
Great. Sorry. I was going to ask a question about so the Moss Park Market, as you talk about, makes fresh produce available at an affordable price. Can you talk a little bit about why the market model and why fresh produce when we're talking about food security? Like, why are those important aspects to the work that you do, or why did you choose to go that route?
Mm-hmm. As I said, we met with the community, and that's key to our approach rather than just taking an idea from ourselves and bringing it on the community. So that was just, what is the community looking for? And so that was fresh produce, and it was also connecting and community building and enlivening the neighborhood. So that's sort of where that came from in this case. And we see, say, in social housing buildings, when we work in other parts of the city, food usually comes in as the top or second top concern of the neighborhood, of the residents. And then we decided to do the market because folks didn't really want, say, a food bank style or like trying a new way. People want to just go and buy food just like anyone else at a store. So we said, okay, we'll make our own shop. A farmer's market won't really work because of the cost involved and such. So that's where we created our own model and have food that we access. And we also started an urban farm project in Leslieville at the Ashbridge Estate. And this year, we're very lucky to have many other community garden projects in downtown and the East End contributing fresh food to us. So we just got our first garlic scapes and donated from a Ryerson, actually from the Ryerson's urban farm rooftop
That's
farm.
Awesome.
Yeah, so using this market and using the model of giving fresh bags, that allows us to sort of bring anything into that, and also to bring in music and performers and
neat
kids activities around the market too on the weekend.
That sounds like an amazing community spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Darcy, like, we like, collectively, I'm sure, understand the value of food, but like, can you really talk about why is it important to have fresh food for communities?
I think for Lisa and I, it's also, we see the inequities. I think there's something that it just doesn't sit well with us to see that wealthy people, wealthy communities, whiter communities have the access that's right there. We work in another community actually near Yorkville, and that's sort of a different kind of a food desert because there's only like expensive grocery stores there, but there are low-income people beside it. So it's not a low-income neighborhood, but there are people or buildings that are low-income, and so there is food, but it's not accessible. So that's even, for those folks to have that beside them, it's challenging, and it's sort of an esteem becomes a community esteem issue. So we feel people are proud, the community is proud to have the market, and that's important, and that we can have people, low-income communities, racialized communities also have higher rates of disease, of diabetes, and a lot of it is because what is provided to them, fast food, that large companies that are owned by wealthier white people have, they can make a profit from that, right? And so it's driven in that way. So we want to cut through that and provide what people want, what an immigrant family wants to be able to grow vegetables, maybe have something that they had back home, and feed their kids healthy food. And so when we see the results, we're really pleased with it.
Thank you. That's great.
Yeah, that's really important to talk about and to hear about for sure. Everyone deserves to have access to food that is nourishing and healthy for them, and to feel good about their community.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. And some degree like culturally appropriate as well. It's important because I remember growing up, my dad would take the time to go all the way down to Chinatown because there were so few markets that were available with some of these tropical fruits, and he'd bring them back and be like, doesn't taste as good as back home, but it's something you got to try, and he'd go and find the mango or the exotic, like what we call like custard apple or whatever, and bring it, at a premium price he'd pay, but he'd bring one just to make sure that we could try it and we knew what it felt like, so I'm grateful that despite having been raised with little, we were still able to experience some of those things for sure.
That's great. Yeah, the mangoes are probably the most popular produce in Toronto, and just having that available is really important, and in season, what is in season for them, even though it's not local. And also we've been able to grow things like our urban farmer Kate, she grew an Ethiopian kale variety, and last year, we're having that again this year. And so when we had it to the market, we have a large East African population. So I think as soon as we got the first one out of the ground and brought to the market, and we gave it, and somebody said, "Oh, this is great. I love this from back home. I'm going to come now. I can get it."
Very cool. So, Brittany, do you want to go into?
Sure.
I think that. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, did you want to say something, Farheen?
No. I was just going to say that's so wonderful to hear about the kale. It's really great.
I would say before we move on to the next question, just that it sounds like sometimes students face similar difficulties on campuses that potentially are really far away from grocery stores in some cases, and they only can eat what's on the campus, which is potentially really expensive or highly processed or all pizza, or the pizza is the only thing that's affordable. I know that I went through that during my degrees, and anyway, so a lot of people don't have access to food that is healthy or is culturally appropriate, or the ability to go somewhere else to find other food, either because it's too far or it's too expensive, or they are not, they don't have enough income, right? And tuitions are rising. And, during COVID, especially, this is becoming a very difficult time when we see that students have much less, the Canadian Emergency Student Benefit is significantly less than what everyone else is getting. So anyways, I just wanted to comment that, it sounds like for us that we encounter students who have similar difficulties accessing food that they want. And we've seen, as we piloted, fresh food markets or good food markets on some campuses, and they've really worked because people like to be able to choose what they can have access to. Obviously, that's a bit more difficult right now, which leads me to my next question. I'm wondering how COVID-19 has shaped your work and some of the ways that it's changed, and if you think any of those changes will continue long term.
Yeah, okay. Well, the completely affected our work. Obviously, it's affected everyone. But right at the beginning, we said, okay, what are the key things that we can do as an organization? And we work not just in food, but in creating resilience and cohesion in this community. So a lot of the programs that we did for kids and youth, we couldn't do anymore. So we also saw that it was really important to provide really good information to people that may not have the internet and may not be bombarded with all the information we were getting at the start of COVID about safety and health and resources. So we put that together and provided it right to the folks living in the buildings. And we also thought of ways to keep people active and connected with activities and books and things that we could bring directly to people. And we've got kids, activity kits, educational resources. And today, I think Pokemon is actually delivering a shipment of toys that we're going to give out at the market. So
that's cool.
We're also going to give, we're going to have social distance music performances through this summer. We did one with a group called Jammy a month ago, where they have this bicycle that they can put a musician on the back. They had a keyboard and a speaker on the front and a driver, social distance. So we brought them to Moss Park, and he biked around and performed up to the balcony. So that was a lovely.
It's amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah, people came out and danced. So we know people want that, and we'll do more of it. And then the big part was on the food, on the healthy food that we already had these baskets of food. We already had the market and the infrastructure and the trust of the community. We had to go out and find some of the seniors. So we worked with community agencies like HouseLink and others, actually quite a number of groups. And we did our own deliveries with our own team. And we also provided 20 or 50 fresh food baskets to other organizations that they could distribute them in other buildings, and even got over to Parkdale and North York and the East End and helped some other groups to distribute as well. So these packages have fresh fruit and vegetables, but we worked with like Ozary Bakery is a local partner, so they've been providing these fresh bread rolls. We've got chefs like Alex So and Joshna Maharaj provided soup and pies and cookies, and Joshna worked with other chefs in the city and had others donate, so we could have, and especially people that may not be able to cook as much, so they could get a fresh soup or things like that,
right,
as well as masks, and we delivered everything that we could. And you said about continuing, so I guess to be open, I think a lot of groups are considering, where do they go with this? Some of our partners have been thinking about it. Do we maybe ramp down and just keep delivering to those that are most, that have the most difficulty getting out, so they can still get to, they can keep getting the access, and if we can still have resources and funds to provide the food, then we'll keep doing that for those who choose. And others can come by the market. And we've changed that to a free model, but a pay it forward. So if you can't afford it, just come pick up a fresh food bag, and we don't have any checklists or anything for people. You can just come and pick up. Excellent. And if you can afford it, you can pay the $5 or $10, or you could donate online and pay for the next group of people.
That's really exceptional. For all that you're doing, it's quite remarkable. Love that there's a pay what you can model happening, and also that there's that you're taking the time to really give the community what they're looking for. That's really great. So just one last, we're almost about to wrap up. So I wanted to ask you some last thoughts around, what advice would you give to students and young people and to people in general about who are looking to make change in their communities around access? What are some of the things that they should be thinking about, or what can they do?
Excellent question, because everybody can get involved and take a step to work on this. And this is a time where Black Lives Matter and social movements are so strong, and people are having important conversations. And so we can even think about doing things better than we have before, or doing things appropriately for a pandemic, which wasn't considered before. So Lisa and I, when we started building Roots early, we started with some advocacy, and we taught workshops with youth in St. Jamestown and other parts of the city, to think about where do you start is probably, we talked about looking around in your neighborhood, talking to people, talking to neighbors, and seeing what are the issues, and then seeing what it is that you might need. So is it maybe your community doesn't have any gardening space and you'd really like to see that, or maybe you'd like to see some sort of market or another kind of intervention. So talking that out, and then researching, learning about the city, about who owns what space. If you want to do your own project, talking to the city councilor things like that. And then, yeah, going from there, I think you just have to sort of form a group of people that care about what you want, maybe like a pod. Now people are talking about community pods during COVID. So, and then if you're at a university, a college, if you're a young person, I studied, actually, my thesis in university was about institutional change on campuses and sustainability. So, you know, I actually learned that the first ever student protest was over food in the US. I think it was in the 1700s at Harvard. And somebody stood up on the table in the cafeteria and said, "Behold, the butter stinketh." And they wanted a quality food in their cafeteria. So you see how food is so important. And maybe there's this history of student activism to look at. And when I was at University of Waterloo, we started a food market for this issue of maybe there's no grocery store nearby. And we also helped with bringing in produce and recipes. We used a produce auction, which is a Mennonite-run auction outside of the city, and with local farmers, and that helped them as well. And what we did was partner with the institution. And so I'm so pleased that it kept running after I was gone. So 10 years, the market was still going. And because it had that institutional partner. So that's something to think about if you're a student that wants to make change. You might also look at, in the past, say you've got a great idea, talk around, like maybe there is administration, staff, faculty, alumni, that maybe there was a project 8 years ago and you would have no idea about it. But you know, they could tell you what's happened in the past. Maybe there was some success, maybe it didn't last, and they can tell you about that. But students come and go. So if you really want something to last, then think of a way to institutionalize the project.
That's really great advice.
Wonderful. Well, we have yeah, for sure. Well, I wanted to just say, you know what, Darcy, we have a question from one of the audience members, which is new for us. So I wanted to just make sure that we didn't, you know, miss this opportunity to answer the question. So Cheyenne Haler from Facebook had asked, question for you all when you take questions. So what do you think about community gardening and urban farms during COVID-19 and how they can benefit mental health and education, but also for food security? Any thoughts around that?
Sure, good question. The community gardening is a lovely thing. The COVID, we're really concerned about the long-term mental health impacts as well as the short-term and what's happening after COVID. And people didn't have a lot to do. People staying inside, and community gardens were actually shut down before there was more advocacy around the province and the country saying that these should be essential. I think if BC declared them essential, and then later Ontario did. But there's a lag, and a lot of them in Toronto in the parks are still getting going. Others are at schools or in Toronto community housing. We've been lucky to support a community, and we helped them be the first one in TCHC to get restarted. Probably just that persistence and dedication in the community and with our coordinator and the residents. And so it's really important to get those back up. Within the school system, a lot of them are closed, but a few organizations have gotten in to use them. So it's really important to have outdoor time. Our team really prioritizes our mental health. We go for long walks, we check in, and gardening is a beautiful thing that everybody can do. And we have our project at the Ashbridge Estate. And if you go to buildingroots.ca, you could learn a bit more. If you want to volunteer, there's an opportunity to come out and just push yourself to go outside if you're not feeling it or you didn't think about it. And getting your hands dirty really has a lot of benefits.
That's amazing.
Wonderful.
All of
Thanks
our
so much for.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was going to say all of our staff has been gardening outside their homes too, and for me, it's only the second time, and it definitely brings some excitement to my days. I got my first strawberry yesterday, and it felt amazing. So
wow, congratulations!
Thank you.
We even had this woman named Katrina helped us develop these kits for kids, and we had a couple hundred in there to grow seedlings. So even if you just had a balcony. We gave those all out a month ago, and hopefully people have posted on Instagram to show their success.
That's amazing. That's really exciting.
Oh, wonderful. Very well, you know what? Thanks so much, Darcy and Brittany, for both of your time. This was such a great conversation. Hopefully we'll have a chance to bring you back on the show. But thanks again for all that you do. Thanks again for your support to all the community members and for your contributions even towards our meal exchange program and so much more. It's really a pleasure to have you on the show.
You're welcome. Thanks so much. It's great to talk with you both, and that we can do this together. People have started working together really well, and our team at Building Roots is so dedicated, and we're so proud of them.
It was great to learn more about what you do and get to meet you. So thanks for the time today.
Thanks, Farheen. Have a good one.
Sure. Take care. Bye. Okay, well, thanks so much, Brittany, for being on the show. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show and to have our staff co-host with me. So what a great conversation. That was really, really nice to learn so much about Building Roots and just the value of food, eh?
It's really Sounds nice. Like we need to learn more about Darcy's thesis.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks so much again, and we'll speak soon. Take care. Okay. Well, thanks again for joining us on this edition of Food Life. It really is always such a pleasure to speak to all of you, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. Thanks for all the support and for the great questions. We really appreciate and encourage you to continue to carry on the conversation with us as we continue to do this work. As a reminder, we are still looking for more support for some dollars to continue to support students past June 30th, which, as you know, is starting to fast approach. So if there's anything you can do in terms of giving us some dollars to be able greatly appreciated. You can always go to goodfoodnow.ca to learn more. Thanks so much. Take care.